So do you feel like you're close to the finish line on this thing now? Can you see the finish line at this point? I know it's been a long road.
No, I mean it has been a long road, and this is a process, and we're entering into a distinct and different part of the process, and it's don't know how long this part of the process is going to last, but the good news is it's the last part of the process. So from that perspective, I feel good about that.
How close is this deal to maybe what you envisioned when you started this process?
Well, I think it's exactly what we'd hope it would have been, which is a very fair and balanced agreement between the Jaguars and the city of Jacksonville that does more than just produce a shiny new stadium, positions Jacksonville to be the site of more and more big events, provides benefits across the entirety of Duval County, and brings some development along with it. So from that perspective, we ended up exactly where we would have hoped.
You mentioned the development across Duval County. The community benefit plan portion of it has been one that has had some early pushback from some members of the city council. How important is that portion of this deal to getting this thing across the finish line for both sides and being able to keep that there?
Well, to have an investment of this magnitude, both from a public standpoint and a private standpoint, and miss the opportunity to have it benefit the entire region, that would be really unfortunate that a project of this size wouldn't be felt throughout the entire community.
Right. So the Jaguars, according to this plan, will be gone for a year, 2027. Two locations you mentioned that were still in the running, Gainesville and Orlando. Can you talk about the pros and cons of both of those locations?
It's a little hard to do that. They're both unique. Camping World Stadium in Orlando has obviously hosted NFL games in the past, and including the Pro Bowl. Florida Field is legendary, particularly in Northeast Florida, to their alumni throughout the entire world. Closer to Jacksonville, a little bit of a tighter footprint, but this is not going to be a decision that will be made solely by what the Jaguars want to do. The National Football League has to weigh in on this as well, and they will be protecting the interest of the league as well as our opponents.
The timeline for that decision would be after everything's fully approved, and then you still have a little bit of time to make a final choice, correct?
Yeah, to focus too much on it right now, I think is a little bit of wasted very valuable resources. We got a lot going on right now, and unless we get the stadium deal done, this really isn't relevant. So I'm sure once we get the stadium deal agreement, if it does happen, then we'll turn our attention to that. It shouldn't take very long to make a decision.
So this deal ultimately comes down, it looks pretty much 50-50. When you present it to the NFL, do you anticipate any pushback getting it approved by the NFL owners?
Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. There's no, that's a certainty. We really can't speak for the 31 other owners. We have been in close contact with the National Football League, and we do know, where this deal may differ from some other deals that have been done in markets similar size to Jacksonville, and we'll have to be able to explain that. But, we're confident that we'll have a really good shot at being able to get this approved by the National Football League, again, assuming that the agreement is what it is at the end. I mean, it's not to say that the city council may want to change some things, and to the degree that happens, I'd have to sort of take a step back and say we have to really assess that.
Have they approved deals of this nature, similar in nature to this one in the past?
Bits and pieces. I think the structure of this deal is very standard in a lot of ways. It is unique in other ways, and it's those areas where it's unique that we will have to spend a lot of time explaining. But the National Football League, at the end of the day, they like teams to stay in their markets, and if there's a path for the team to stay in the market, as long as it is a reasonable path, then you would hope that there would be support from the league. But again, that judgment won't happen until 32 owners convene in Atlanta in the middle of October, assuming that we get a stadium deal agreed to here.
Community huddles start tonight. How informative were the first set of community huddles when I'm sure you were pummeled with questions left and right from fans, from everything from seats to parking. I'm sure you're expecting a lot of questions this go around as well. How important are these to make sure that a lot of those questions get answered?
Well, the community huddles we did just about a year ago have probably been one of the most important parts of this entire process. I'm not expecting a lot of questions about the stadium because we answered every single question you could have been asked about the stadium and the plan. So while we'll be talking about the stadium, I think the focus will be more on the agreement. What's the deal? How does that work? And I think most of the questions from that perspective will be from that perspective, and that's why we're doing it in support of the mayor. You know, these are really the mayor's huddles, and we're obviously going to be there to actively participate.
The Jaguars are going to be a lot more involved in some of the things, game day operations, things of that nature, in this next leaf if everything is approved. How does that benefit and show the commitment that the Jaguars have to Jacksonville in this area?
Well, I think the better way to measure it is the commitment that we have to our fans. And what we want to do is we're going to be essentially hopefully transitioning into essentially a brand new stadium. And what we have to make sure is that the experience that our fans have when they come to games at the stadium, that it's the best possible experience. From that perspective, we believe it's important that we have control over the entirety of the game day experience, and that will be one of the results of this. The second piece is that we find ourselves in a situation with the current stadium because there was never enough money from the city to keep the stadium well maintained, to be able to make the capital improvements as necessary, and we don't want to repeat that. The city doesn't want to repeat it, we don't want to repeat it. So being in the position of being able to manage the capital and the maintenance program going forward is very important to us, and it gives us confidence that this stadium will meet the needs of the Jaguars for the entirety of the 30-year lease extension.
A big part of the plan for the stadium is to meet the needs of many other big events as well, to bring them here to Jacksonville and help with some of the operating expenses. What's I guess the biggest challenge of attracting some of those large events to this new venue that haven't come to Jacksonville or this area in the past?
Well, there's some mega events that are hard for us to get because it has nothing to do with the stadium. It has to do with things like the number of hotel rooms, the quality of hotel rooms, the things to do downtown, you know. So college football championship as an example, even Super Bowl, this stadium will be able to accommodate that without any question. But the city's not quite there yet, you know. As far as other smaller events, particularly events that occur during the summer, concerts and things like that, because that's generally the concert season is during the summer. Those are events that go from market to market to market, and they come into your town and they arrive 4 or 5 days early to set up, and then after the concert, 3 or 4 days later, they're gone. And it's really tightly choreographed on how they handle that. So the idea that you'll be able to avoid the rain issues, be guaranteed you'll be able to avoid the rain issues that you know, we have typically late afternoon, early evening throughout the summers here in Jacksonville, will make the decision to bring concerts here a little more certain. And as we've seen with the concerts we've had here, this market can certainly support big acts inside the stadium.
One of the parts of continuing to develop downtown that's included in this deal is the lot next to the Four Seasons. When do you anticipate an idea on what that will ultimately be or become?
Well, we've committed to have it completed by 4 years after the stadium opens, no later than 4 years, okay? It could well happen before then. So if you're looking at an outside date, that means we'd probably need to start construction no later than 2 years after the stadium opens, which would be 2030. It usually takes 18 months or so to get an agreement with the city as to what's going to happen. So sometime during the year that the stadium opens, we'll probably begin fleshing that out, unless we do it earlier. And we're just going to have to wait and see.